It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. I recently put out a poll on the community tab section of YouTube asking you this question: true or false? A purple belt BJJ competitor today is better than a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-jitsu from 25 years ago, and 75% of you agreed with this statement, saying yes, we believe that purple belts today are better than black belts from 25 years ago. And we had a discussion about this in the comments. Many of you have, as evidence, suggested, well, look at Royce Gracie from UFC 1. His jiu-jitsu was basic, and his wrestling and his takedowns weren't great, etc., etc. And comparing that to the flippy-dippy stuff we see purple belts doing on Instagram today. Oh, look at all the leg locks that the 10th Planet guys are doing today. They would absolutely tool Royce Gracie in a jiu-jitsu match. Okay, and that may or may not be a fair point, but consider this. What Royce and his brothers and his father, etc., were doing many years ago was an importantly different sport than what the Instagram purple belts of today are doing, for the most part. How many people offering the criticism that BJJ purple belts of today are technically superior to the black belts of the past have ever fought in a no rules, no time limit, no weight class, no gloves fighting tournament, let alone won such a tournament? How many people offering this criticism have competed in a vale tudo fight? I'm guessing none of them. Now, I'm absolutely not saying that we should not draw comparisons. I always do. Some people think it's disrespectful. Oh, you can't compare today with the past. That's kind of what makes us human. It is a very unique capacity for reasoning and thought that humans have, being able to compare the past and the present and hypothesize about the future. That's kind of important for the survival of the human race, not just the survival, but the progression of the human race. Our ability to compare and contrast different things, especially through different time periods. And to look at the past and think, hey, that thing we did in the past is not as good as this idea that we have right now, so let's do it better. So many of you offered this idea that if we were to have an IBJJF rules jiu-jitsu competition and pit the jiu-jitsu practitioners from the past, if we went in a time machine and pulled those guys back to the present and pitted them against the IBJJF purple belts of today, that the purple belts would probably win. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Those dudes back then were tough guys. They didn't just hand out black belts like candy. Speaking of which, a number of you suggested in the comments that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu today has become watered down, and that there are many people just being handed a purple belt or a blue belt or a brown belt or a black belt like candy without earning it. I want to know, who are these people? I want names, guys. I want names of these people who are receiving belts and ranks as if they were candy without earning them. I want names of these academies that have become McDojos that are just essentially corrupting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Let me know. Who are these guys? Where are they training? It's one thing to just say that flippantly. Oh, BJJ is becoming a McDojo. It's becoming watered down. It's still at the point where we can isolate these things and fix them. I had a discussion with a student of mine who comes from a judo background, and we were talking about some YouTube comments on my YouTube channel, and there was a fellow accusing me of plagiarizing his YouTube content. I'd never even seen his YouTube channel. But this guy mentioned in one of my videos, he said, that inverted upside down straight ankle lock that you're doing. I invented that. That's mine. You copied that from my channel. Again, I'd never seen his channel, but I have an instructional video on that particular technique from 12 years ago. His channel is 6 years old. So I showed him this technique. He wanted to know, where did you learn that from? So I told him I learned that from Mark Brewer, who is a black belt under Ricky Lundell, who is a black belt under Pedro Sauer, who is a black belt under Helio Gracie, who studied under Carlos Gracie Jr., who studied under Mitsuyo Maeda, who studied under Jigoro Kano. And my student, when I rehearsed this what do we call this, lineage of where this upside down straight ankle lock came from in the first place, he was kind of surprised. He said, what, you can actually trace your lineage to Jigoro Kano in that many steps, in that few steps? I'm like, well, yeah. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners can do that pretty easily because the art isn't really that old. I mean, Judo isn't either. But Judo is so widespread that many Judo practitioners have difficulty tracing their lineage directly to the founder, at least in just a few easy steps. So it's kind of funny how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because it's not as widespread as Judo, at least not at this point in time, it's much easier to trace lineage back to Jigoro Kano, the founder of Judo. Anyway, I digress. How good was Kano? How good were his students? I've seen some old film reels of these guys, and they had skills, man. They had skills. Kyozo Mifune, for example. Man, Kyozo Mifune was a tiny little badass of a man who had impeccable balance and skill, even as an old man, even at age 80. And there are many phenomenal Judo practitioners today, but would it be fair to say that Judo practitioners today are better than Kyozo Mifune? They've certainly had many different experiences than Mifune had. And many of them possess radically different skill sets than Mifune had. But at the same time, a lot of them completely ignore many of the aspects of Judo that were taught and widely practiced in the days of Kyozo Mifune, specifically newaza, ground fighting. I mean, you can see film reels of Kyozo Mifune doing ground fighting. He used deep half guard, man, before that was cool, before anybody in the BJJ community was a twinkling in their father's eyes, let alone were raving about the deep half guard. It was just something that happened, man. But are there BJJ practitioners today who do deep half guard better than Kyozo Mifune did? Absolutely. Absolutely. What he did back then as far as newaza was pretty basic. Are there Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners today that are better than Helio Gracie? For sure. For sure. And I think that's what he would have wanted. He would have wanted his art and those who carried it on to make it better. At the same time, man, there's so much that you can learn and pick up by just taking a look at the past. There was this book. I don't remember who published it, but it had techniques as being taught by Royce Gracie, and there was a section titled something like My Father's Favorite Techniques, and it showed pictures of Helio Gracie doing certain jiu-jitsu techniques. And there's a point where he's demonstrating an arm lock, like an Americana, but you slip out sideways. You can do it from side control or from north-south. I don't even know what it's called. The book didn't even offer a name. Probably has a Japanese name in Judo. It's an old Judo technique. And Elio Gracie, apparently it was one of his favorite techniques, and the book simply had a still photograph of him performing the technique, and I took a look at it, and I thought, huh, you know what I'm missing in my jiu-jitsu repertoire is attacks from side control and attacks from north-south. I like the idea of this. I'm going to figure out how to do this. So I studied the still picture. And I got some friends and a mat, and we got together and we practiced until we were able to get in that position and get the tap. And we practiced it against variable levels of resistance until eventually it became one of my favorite submissions. And I catch people with it all the time to this day. And I was never taught that submission by an instructor. I was never shown that submission in the UFC or from some flippy-dippy purple belt on Instagram. I learned that from studying a picture from a very long time ago from an old man who passed away and left a legacy of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which he learned from judo practitioners that passed it down to his family. There's nothing new under the sun. There isn't. It is laughable to me. It is funny to me, for example, when this gentleman said, I was plagiarizing his content, that upside down straight ankle lock, for example, that's mine, I invented that. No, sir, no, you did not. In fact, you can go to YouTube and see an old film reel of some of Jigoro Kano's students demonstrating leg locks, and they do straight ankle locks, inverted, upside down, right side, left side, even a single Boston crab. No kidding. Check out this clip right here. So what would happen? What would happen if we pitted the black belts from 25 years ago, if we ripped them out of time in a time machine, put them today in a sport jiu-jitsu match against modern purple belts? Again, most of you suggested that the purple belts would win, but if we took modern purple belts, put them in the past in a UFC 1 style tournament or a Vale Tudo fight, what would probably happen? Most of you seem to agree that the purple belts would get smashed, because that's not what they train for. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train. Hey fella, looks like you could use a rash guard. What for, you say? Well, they protect your skin against mat-borne illnesses, mat burn, and they make you look incredibly cool. But where do I get a rash guard from? Hey, have you heard of xmartial.com? Yeah? Then what are you waiting for? Check them out right now. xmartial.com has all kinds of rash guards, from sleek and simple, novelty, badass designs, and more. Channel your inner Japanese cartoon rat monster. Express your love for bad puns and kitty cats doing iconic jiu-jitsu moves. Hey, that panda's gonna hit the other panda with a folding chair like a pro wrestler. And this one makes your right arm stand out. xmartial.com, serving your needs beyond just no-gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, find brand new equipment for mixed martial arts, kickboxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, and more at xmartial.com. As always, use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything on the website. Once again, that's xmartial.com. Rash guards, spats, shorts, and more. Links and discount codes in the description below.